Hey, welcome to the West Coast Biased. I'm Andrew Nemec, joined as always by Jason Suke and Nemec. Suke, how you doing, man?
Feeling good. It's been a rough technological morning, but we press on. So I think we're figured it out now. So I'm ready to go.
It's been a wonky start. Admittedly, we did have to restart. You had a buddy say hi to you. I do have a question to start.
Yeah, what you got?
You still do sleepovers? Like you have people that I don't know how this works. So that's part of my question.
Yeah.
You will say like, I had a buddy stay the night.
Yeah. So we just like
what's going on?
So I have a buddy that like comes in from Bend, and he's got some business here, and so a lot of times he'll just stay over, and he can either, like a lot of times it's literally sleeping and then waking up and driving out the next morning. So like his in-laws are in town, so he either does hotel, in-laws, or my house. And shocking development, he usually ends up at my house, and we just end up drinking. So instead of having to worry about getting him to a hotel and all that, so we just start drinking, and then you can bumper bowl your way upstairs, crash out in the guest room, and then he wakes up the next morning and drives out. So yeah, I do if you're gonna have, I'm a big believer, if you're gonna have a heavy night of solving the world's problems and drinking, the best thing in the world is to just have a room 10 feet away where you can go upstairs. It's like if you go to a holiday party or you go to a charity auctions and it's a hotel, just book the room. It's the easiest thing in the world. And it's just way better. And you don't have to worry about, Ubers and how I'm getting home and where I leave my car. So I do have the adult sleepover, and that usually involves a night of catching up, smoking cigars, maybe a fire out back, having a few beverages, and then crashing out and wake up the next morning, get yourself a coffee and head on out. So I'm like the Holiday Inn Express of Cascade Park in Vancouver.
Side note, you also have a bidet.
I do.
What percentage of sleepover friends end up just to try it?
Well,
using your bidet,
so
or
is
bidet, that like, listen?
Yeah, well,
that's for a very few.
If someone wanted to try the bidet, I would certainly let them. Now, I
want to take a crap at your house.
Well, the friend that just left, he's the reason why. Like, he was kind of the inception of the bidet, because he's a fancy lad. So he buys the full Japanese toilet. Like the Japanese are light years ahead of us on toilet technology, and so he bought like the full like $8,000 Japanese toilet. I just have the Japanese toilet seat. So you can, if you're like a fancy lad, get yourself a Japanese toilet. It's the greatest thing in the world. If you're like a regular folk, go get yourself a Brondell. And as long as you have a power outlet to plug into, I'm telling you, it'll be, if a fire broke out of my house and I had to pick like 5 things to save, my toilet seat would be one of them. It's the greatest thing in the world. I will, if I'm driving around and I'm within 10 minutes of my house and I feel the urge, I will come home. So I will go 10 minutes out of my way to come home and play on my home field. Dude, my home field, it's like Autzen Stadium up in my bathroom. It is one of the best home field advantages you're going to find in the Pacific Northwest. And so when I have to travel and I have to play road games, I'm telling you, I don't like it. Like I was in Italy for like 10 days, and my delicate backside needed to get home to the warm, cooling waters of Suke and Nemec. Once you go this way, you won't go back. So if someone wanted to try it, I would certainly be like, yeah, go upstairs, get wet and wild. But it's only in the master bathroom, and the master bathroom, like a master bedroom in itself, is a weird, like going into a grown person's bedroom is odd.
It is
like
odd.
even when you go over to someone's house for the first time, they buy a new house and you give them the tour, walking into someone's bedroom is weird. Like it's a strange thing. Walking into someone's master bathroom, even weirder.
It's true. I have good friends that I've hung out with lots of times, and I've never been in their master bathroom.
No, in fact, I'll go a step further. My best friend I've known for 20 plus years. I don't think I've ever been in his bedroom. I couldn't tell you what his bedroom looks like.
Yeah.
It's just you don't do it. Like you don't go, but I haven't been in his kid's bedroom either. Thank God. Like those are just, bedrooms are different. It's just, it's odd. So you always have like one bathroom, like a little like powder bathroom. And then maybe like for my house, like my bathroom downstairs is really small. And so if it's a guest, I'm like, you can go upstairs and use the bathroom in the hallway. That's like the kids' bathroom. Although the kids are gone. So it's that, but I've never once been like, yeah, why don't you go take a crap in my room? Yeah. But if someone was over and they said, I want to test out the bidet, I'd be like, here's the remote and, take it for a spin. Tell me what you think. But that would have to be a request from someone to go use the good toilet. That being said, I'm telling you, this Christmas, they're a couple $100. Go and don't buy the cheap one with the cold water. Spend it's like $300, maybe $400. Go get yourself the heated seat, heated water washer, heated water, air dry, little talc underneath that poofs up. Go get yourself a fancy toilet seat, and I'm telling you, it'll be the best thing you ever did.
You are like a parfait or an onion in to use the Shrek parlance. You have layers, and people think you're probably, they see you, the bald head, the beard, they think, okay, white supremacist lineman. No. I'll raise you Japanese girlfriend or significant other. Girlfriend seems to unprofessional. I don't know.
She owns me.
You've been together a long time.
Time.
You have surprisingly, and this is a weird thing for me to know because I'm not a foot guy, O-linemen always have the worst feet. Their feet and hands, they look terrible. You have fairly normal feet, which is weird because most linemen don't. You have a bidet upstairs. There's layers to you, Suke. And people who just diminish you to an O-lineman meathead. No.
Don't put me into a box. Now, I will say right in front of the screen, I do have a big, giant Viking axe that is an actual real axe.
And then sometimes you also lean into exactly
that is there. I do have a big axe that I could reach out and grab right now that I do go out occasionally and throw against a tree and can chop wood. This is actually here. This is one of my favorite things. The missus got this for me. Yeah. So this is, and by the way, this is
cool. That's
nice.
Cool axe. This is great for an audio medium, by the way.
Yeah, right. Sit there.
I really appreciate you doing this.
I got that. But
the YouTube audience likes it.
But then upstairs,
it's a cool axe.
Yeah. But then I got to go upstairs with my axe and I got to use my bidet, and it's wonderful. Enjoy. You got to find the little things in life, man. You got to enjoy the little things, and the little things are axe throwing and having a delicate winker, warm washed and then air dried in a little poof of talc. And you feel fresh as a daisy.
That's wonderful. There's no transition here. No. People say, well, Nemec's sometimes more of a 2, not sure he's a 1, not sure he can guide us into topics. They're right. Absolutely right. Guilty as charged. The haters were correct. I have no idea how to get to the Oregon game, but Oregon wins a football game. Speaking of talc, I don't know. Oregon beats Minnesota 42-13. I don't know how much we learn here. Again, this is a very weird Oregon season. I think sometimes we go into these podcasts on Monday and I'm like, they kind of are who we thought. And the opponent doesn't really teach me much. I think I'm starting to lean in and feel that this Oregon team can win a rock fight against most teams. I think if they get behind in a game, especially early, they will have a hard time because their offensive line, they're road graders. They're A+ road graders. I think in pass protection, they're a C+, B-, and maybe B, whatever. If they get behind and have to throw, I don't trust the receivers. Dante Moore is good, but when he's pressured, you see his inexperience. I think this is a team that game script wise, if it's a close, low scoring game, great. If it's a shootout and they can stay even and run the ball if they want to, fine. Their issue is going to be if they get into a playoff game. And everybody's issue when they get into playoff game is if they fall behind double digits, right? When you fall behind by double digits against a good team, you're probably going to lose. But they seem particularly adverse offensively to that style of football, right? Where if they have to throw and they have to somewhat abandon the run, they'll have a little bit of a harder time if you can heat them up. But that's a pretty limited game script to then say this is the only thing that is concerning. They were able to get ahead early, and when they can get ahead and just run the football, they can run it down your throats. They can run it against most teams really effectively, and that's what we saw. I don't feel like we learned much when they played Minnesota, Purdue, Oklahoma State. They are kind of who we thought they were.
Oregon is a lot better than the bad teams and average teams. Star. Minnesota,
particularly in the Dan Lanning era. They highlight that better than almost
you watch
any
that.
Other coach.
You watch that game. There was nothing impressive about Minnesota. Nothing. They're set. They'll be 7-5. They're fine. They didn't belong on the field with Oregon. Rutgers didn't belong on the field with Oregon. Northwestern is kind of a scrappy team. We saw Northwestern put a charge into Michigan, and they're just significantly better than average to below average teams. And they're not going to lose those games. They just won't. From a talent standpoint, they're just too good. And then, when they've played better teams, if you want to say Penn State, Iowa, and Indiana, they're 2-1, and all those games have been close and could have gone the other way, right? Like Indiana, I thought Indiana was just better than Oregon, but let's not act like that was a blowout game by any stretch of the imagination. They were right in that to the fourth quarter, and player 2 goes the other way. Penn State, you needed overtime, and against Iowa, one of the best throws you've seen against Dante Moore probably saved you from, just a mind-numbing defeat. And I don't think that Penn State and Iowa are like amazing teams, but I think they're talented teams, and I think they, are better than your average Bear. And so that to me is just where Oregon's at. And I think there's a lot of teams that are like that. They're better than most of the teams walking out on the field. 75 to 80% of college football will not have a chance from an athletic standpoint when Oregon shows up. Oregon's just better, and they will win those games. And other than that, they've been kind of a flip a coin. Who makes one or two more plays? And I think that will probably ring true over these next couple weeks. I think Oregon is significantly better than USC and Washington. I think both of those teams fall into the category of Iowa, Penn State, more so than they do Indiana, but in that there'll be talent on USC, especially from an offensive side of the ball. There'll be talent that'll test Oregon. And I expect both of those games to probably be fairly close. And I expect Oregon to win both of those games because I think Oregon's better than USC, and I think Oregon's better than Washington. But if you told me that they lost either one of those games, I would not be shocked one bit. Right. When they go into the playoff, and I do think this is a playoff team. If you told me they won a game or two, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't think they're going to win a national title because I think in these games, I think these are coin flip games. And I don't think Oregon is elite enough at many things to win 4 of those in a row. Right. So this is kind of turning out to me, when we talked about Oregon at the start of the year, this is kind of what we thought they were. A very good team, a playoff team that we think is probably a year away. And I feel pretty good about what this has turned into. It's very, very similar to that, maybe in some different ways. And again, health may come into that. And
good luck checking every box in a preseason prediction. But literally, like, here's what the D line is going to be, and here's what the secondary is going to be.
I think largely, the Big Ten, with the exception of maybe Penn State, the Big Ten is kind of, USC is kind of what we thought USC was going to be.
Indiana's a tier better than I liked Indiana before the season.
You did. You liked Indiana more than I did. Indiana is better. That's one. Indiana is definitely a tier up than what I thought. But USC and Washington, again, maybe Washington certainly is a tier down from what I thought. But again, we thought Washington, I think we both kind of thought maybe 8-2 going into 9-3, and they're right in that mix. The one game that they lost that I don't think they had an excuse for losing the other week.
Well, that's a thing. Like, Lanning hasn't lost that game.
No.
So far in Seattle, Jed Fish has lost at least one of those every year, where you go, okay, they're easily going to win. Maryland, oh my goodness, they lost to, I think they lost to Maryland last year.
Yeah, they did.
One of their weird ones. And you go, what in the world? Yeah. They had that this year. Yep. And that's the issue with Jed Fish that's different than Dan Lanning. And Dan Lanning's different than a lot of coaches now.
Yeah, so if they go into that game 8-3, and I think they will. I mean, Washington had a nice bounce back win. And so if they beat UCLA and they go into that 8-3, I mean, I thought they would go into it, on the most. I was like, I think this could be a 10-2 team. So it goes into it 9-3. That sounds about, that you're literally about right. I just think at least from the teams that we mostly cover, right? Oregon, Washington, Oregon State. That's a whole other thing. I didn't think Oregon State would be this bad, but the 3 big boys in the Big Ten, well, even 4, like UCLA is what we thought they were. They're not very good. They fired their coach. They've shown some life, but we didn't expect them to do anything. And I think Oregon, USC, and Washington for the most part, have been in that range. I'd say there hasn't been a big shock for me on any three of those football teams.
No.
They're a little
Oregon State is the shock on the West Coast.
Oregon State is the shock. I did not expect Oregon State to have, I mean, let's just call it what it is. This is one of the worst.
We'll get there.
It's one of the worst seasons. So yeah, but this has been so far. This has been about what we expected, and hopefully we get a great finish here with a couple weeks left to play, and at least for Oregon, I think 2 very, very exciting games with USC at home and then on the road against Washington. I mean, this is great. It's been a really fun stretch for Oregon football.
Listen to a podcast recently breaking down NFL draft prospects, and they mentioned quarterbacks who have only started really 1 year with star power. Like, you can have the hiccup year where you're a freshman and you're not great, and then your sophomore year, you're great if you're a redshirt sophomore. There's only been like 1 or 2 of those guys in the last 15 years, 12 years that have panned out. And one of them that they count as the pan out guy. Like the beacon of light amongst that group is Sam Darnold, who was absolutely awful for the first 3-4 years of his career.
Yep.
Most quarterbacks are coming back. Dante Moore sets a record for highest completion percentage among quarterbacks who have thrown, I think it's more than 20 passes in Oregon history. He's 27 of 30. It was against a not very good Minnesota team. So it's still great that, there's still some great throws in there. But it does seem like Dante Moore is coming back no matter what. And it does seem like, as we said before the season, this is a team for next year. Brandon Finney's coming back. DeCorian Moore is going to be back. Your running backs are going to be a year older. The offensive line is going to lose some real pieces and they're going to rebuild. Well, that's what we said last year. And then they went to the transfer portal. So they're going to have to do that again. It's such a luxury that Oregon is in this place where they go, oh, they're going to lose some key linemen. They'll hit the portal and figure it out. But this defense is super young. They're going to be phenomenal next year. I think Bryce Betcher leaving hurts somewhat from an experience standpoint. This has not been his best year. I thought he was on the cusp of really breaking out and being special last year, and it just kind of hasn't quite gotten there. The rest of the pieces are fairly young and good. I think this Oregon team is going to be better next year, and every time I watch them, I feel that way. Yeah. That was one of my big takeaways from this game. My other one is, and I just have to say it because I'm the person who said the opposite for most of the year. Mm-hmm. The one thing, and I didn't say we wouldn't see it. I just said I hadn't seen it. Kenyon Sadiq being a go-to receiver. Yeah. He'd had those 3 catch games, those 4 catch games. And it's like, go back and look. And from, last year he was kind of the 3rd string guy, but not really, because Herbert was there and Terrence Ferguson was there. And this year he's going to be the featured guy. And I said, we haven't seen more than 3 or 4 catches in those blowouts. Was that a factor that they were just blowing people out? And so they they sat him because they didn't need him? Or is he really not a go-to? 8 catches, I think it was 98 yards and a touchdown this week, and really looks like, and is starting to catch some balls outside of his frame, is starting to 8 for 96 and a touchdown, is really starting to look like that alpha receiver who can be a fantasy relevant. I said, he's a great blocker. I wonder if he's ever going to be more than a guy who gets 3 or 4 grabs for 40 yards in the NFL. He's showing that he's enough of a weapon that not only is he a first rounder, but he could be a George Kittle guy, the guy that has the 100-yard game in the NFL. It's coming. He's coming along beautifully. I think Kenyon Sadiq in this game was my biggest takeaway in that, he can be an alpha receiver. And even when the other team knows he's going to get targets because everybody's hurt, he'll get it anyway. Yeah, and I thought that was a huge sign of growth for him.
I was thinking the same. I thought of you when I was watching that game on Friday. I was watching it I was actually watching it at my favorite bar. So I'm sitting there and I'm it's funny because I'm sitting there in a bar and everyone's kind of like hooting and hollering, and I'm the only one that's talking about like the extension of the tight end's arms. And I did think about you in the midst of that, because you did point out earlier in the year that he could be a bit robotic. Right. And that he wasn't a natural fluid catcher of the ball. But he looked like Tarzan. Mm-hmm. And so when someone looks like that, we automatically assume that they're a flowy athlete. And it wasn't for him. And I think you have seen, and that was certainly the breakout, but you've seen it over this year. You've seen the progress. And this is something to remember. These kids are all unfinished products.
Right.
And I do think you have seen him become a better route runner. And I certainly think you've seen him become a better catcher of the football. And by far, that was his best game, and not just from a number standpoint, but like you said, catching the ball away from his body as opposed to being kind of a stiff robotic guy. You actually saw some hands away from the body, and you saw some athleticism there, that you knew the athleticism was there. But just because you're a great athlete doesn't necessarily mean that you're a great catcher of the ball.
There's great athlete and there's natural athlete, right? Like those are two kind of different things.
Like I played in the NFL with a guy, Ricky Dudley. I don't know if you remember Ricky Dudley.
I do know Ricky
at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Who might have been the most physically impressive human being I've ever seen in my life. I thought
he was going to be a superstar. Yeah,
dude, I'm telling you, just if you do yourself a favor, if you're sitting there on Google, just look up Ricky Dudley. That dude would walk in to our weight room. And by the way, he didn't really even lift weights, and it didn't matter. He just could lift the house.
He was a Raider, right?
Yeah. He was a Raider. He was a Buccaneer. He was a Cleveland Brown. And, he was this guy. He was like 6'7", 6'8", 200 and God knows what, 260, 270. He was Rob Gronkowski before Rob Gronkowski. And he was fine. He had a couple years where he made 30 grabs or whatever, but he had these ridiculously long arms. You looked at him and you're like, dude, that will be the greatest tight end. And he just wasn't. And he was a great athlete. He just wasn't a great receiver. He just wasn't. He wasn't a natural, fluid guy. And I wondered, and Sadiq isn't. I mean, he looks good, but he's not the prototypical 6'7", 6'6".
No, he's compact. He's Harold Fannin.
Yeah.
And that's the glorious thing. We do this all the time. And that's part of the reason you see in the NFL like that, okay, Bryce Young can be number one because Baker is looking good now. Yeah. And then the next guy that's too small, it's like, Bryce Young hasn't panned out. So the next guy takes a hit. The fact that Harold Fannin's kind of hit the ground running as a rookie is going to be that pass catching tight end. Sadiq can be that guy in a supercharged version.
So I just wondered if Sadiq was going to be more Ricky Dudley of looks like the all world guy and ends up playing for 10 years in the NFL, but is never necessarily a star. Mm-hmm. And I think you're starting to see some of the athleticism start to show up in the pass catching. And we know after the catch, he can be a yak guy. So I do think you're starting to see the evolution to where I'm starting to buy in. I always knew that guy was going to be a first round pick based on potential. And I would have been a little more of like, we'll see what happens when he gets to the NFL. A lot of tight ends look like that and don't necessarily become the thing. And again, see Kyle Pitts, right? I mean, there's plenty of those guys. He's starting to become someone that I look at, and he's going to be a first rounder, not just because of potential, but also because of production. You're starting to see him put it all together. And I think he's gone, but I do think coming back for another year would be great for him. But when you're going to be a top 15 pick, he ain't coming back.
Since the Rutgers game, he's just hit another.
He just looks different. Yep, he looks different, and he's really the light switch has come on. So enjoy him while you can, Duck fans, because that dude gone. He's gonna be in the NFL.
I think sometimes we talk about things a little bit more reservedly than like go look at the Shedeur Sanders takes today. It's like he's either the greatest quarterback and they screwed him, or he's a superhero. We talk about things, and sometimes I'll get caught with the fan base being like, you said Sadiq can't catch. And I was like, no. I'm saying we haven't seen that yet. And from an NFL profile, when you're evaluating a guy, that's the next box he needs to check. It doesn't mean he can't do it. It's like Dante Moore. The next thing we need to see with Dante Moore is when he's heat up, where he throws the football and like diagnosing, okay, the blitz is coming from here. I can throw just behind the blitz and I'll throw a slant. I'll hit a slant. We get it, on 2nd and 10, we get it to 3rd and 4. And that's plenty. That's enough because we're in a manageable situation, just moving the sticks and doing all that. He can do that against not very good teams. We saw against Indiana. We saw against some of the other teams where they won, but they struggled, that he had a little bit harder time with that. It's just the next hurdle to clear as a profile. I'm not saying a guy can't do something. So for me, it was Kenyon Sadiq's never been asked to be an alpha receiver in college. He just hasn't been asked. Some guys have it and some guys don't. And he just is starting to show that he has it. The other thing I took from this game, Oregon's secondary is giving me some Legion of Boom vibes here in a lot of ways. One, the shutdown nature of them, the length that they throw at you, the physicality some of those guys have with Kennedy and Flowers and all those guys. They'll hit you, Thieneman, obviously. But also this mentality that like they now have the reputation You know, it's like Dame early in his career. He'd get fouled and then he wouldn't get the calls, and then he started getting the calls. This secondary has the reputation of being shut down. Yeah. So we can kind of be physical every play. You can't throw defensive holding or pass interference every play. And we're going to get away with it quite a bit because now we have the reputation that we're pretty good. Yeah. This is a really physical secondary.
Absolutely.
And you saw in that game Minnesota's coaching staff. I am 100% sure I would bet money on it that they, before the game, told the officials, hey, Oregon secondary is real physical. Because you could see at times there'd be an incompletion on third down, and they're ready for the flag the whole sideline when it was like maybe not, like it was iffy. But every play they had clearly kind of set the table, and look for that now. This secondary has a reputation of being real physical. And again, you can't call it every play.
No.
And they're so dominant that against most opponents, they'll take the one or two defensive holding pass interference calls they're going to get.
Yeah.
And the give and take from that is we get to be handsy with you all game long.
Especially if you get the flags early, right? Get them out of the way, because that's the idea. I mean, O-lines do this. I mean, I know there's certain O-lines that do this. They're like, hey, if we're going to get holding calls, get them early and set the tone that this is the way we're going to play, and we're going to put the onus on the official to throw 10 holding penalties against us. And we don't think you're going to do it. I think after a certain point, you're going to swallow the flag. So I do know it's a thing that absolutely teams deploy. And yeah, you can totally see it from the Oregon secondary. So one thing we can say about the Oregon defense is, it's shown up, with the exception of maybe, Indiana.
No, I mean, you know what? Even against that's a really good offense. Yeah, and that was a close game in the fourth.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. Other than that, anybody that thinks that this is some sort of high flying team, it is not. This whole team is predicated on running the ball and playing defense. Right. And that's they are more they're more inclined, if they are going to win playoff games, they are going to win games in a low scoring affair. This is not a team, I think, that wants to play any of these playoff teams up in the 30s and 40s. I just don't think, like you said, right now, that's not the way they're constructed.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. They're playing a USC team that we say styles make fights. This is such a tough matchup for USC.
Yeah.
And I'm so tired. Can I be honest? I'm so tired of USC in the same shtick. Like, honestly, what it feels like to me is that USC had a bunch of people who in a board meeting and hadn't really watched the Pete Carroll USC teams. And were like, what worked? And they watched a highlight reel and they were like, dude, Matt Leinart, Mark Sanchez, Reggie Bush, Lindell White. They had a Reggie Williams, right? Didn't they have a Reggie Williams, and Washington had a Reggie Williams like the same time that were great? Reggie Williams, like all these great playmakers. You know what we need to do? We need to be up tempo. We need to sling the ball around the yard. And what nobody remembers is, and I can't believe this, USC was physically dominant. Yeah. And you can look back at the Pete Carroll years, and whether it was the linebacking core with Brian Cushing, who was roided out of his
Keith Rivers and Malaluga, and on the defensive line you had Sean Ellis, and you had Tate Cody, and in the back half you had Darnell Bing. And I mean, I could go on and on about USC defenders.
So physical. And then their offensive line was great. They put a ton of offensive line. People got the wrong message, and I don't know in-house how USC didn't get the message. Oregon drank your milkshake. Yeah. Oregon went, you know what worked when we were on the West Coast? When they were bullies with great athletes. And the West Coast produces quarterbacks, receivers, running backs. Look at the history of the league. I mean, Tom Brady's from California. So many great passers have come out of the Pac-12 in history. So many great receivers, so many great running backs. The hard thing to do is get guys in the trenches to get thumpers at linebacker. That's SEC territory. That's Big Ten territory, historically speaking. Oregon went with Dan Lanning particularly, let's load up on the bullies, and then nobody can hang with us on the West Coast. Yeah, they have good athletes, but we're bullies. And USC went, remember those highlights? You know who made that team? Matt Leinart.
Oh, yeah.
Bullshit. Matt Leinart's a great player. Mark Sanchez was a great college player. Reggie Bush, one of the greatest college players ever. That's not what set the tone for USC. Pete Carroll set the tone for USC by getting bullies. No. And this USC team seems allergic to bully ball. and they have the entire Lincoln Riley era. Yeah. And it's like, I wonder what's wrong. You know what? We need to get better receivers. And it's like, stop paying Jordan Addison. Go get an offensive and defensive line. It drives me nuts. So now they're going to play an Oregon team that loves to run. Okay, we'll just run it down your throat. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. And USC's like, well, you know what? We can hang with you point-wise, but dear God, please don't try to run on us because we're not real good at stopping the run. You're screwed. Yeah. And it's like year 3 or year 4. And I'm tangent, I don't care. Whatever. To hell with USC. I'm pissed at them. They left for the Big Ten, and they had runway and left everyone else scrambling, right? So USC and UCLA can kind of set the tone. We know we're going to the Big Ten. And whether or not they say it publicly or whatever, they privately have runway. At no point did the football staff communicate with the athletic department and go, you know what style we're going to need in the Big Ten? We're going to need to be more physical. Yeah. And we're like on year 3 or 4 of them not understanding that. So yeah. Oregon's going to physically beat up on USC. And yes, they have Mekhi Lemon. And yes, they have Jacoby Lane. And they're phenomenal receivers. And their offense is dynamic. You know what's not dynamic? You know what nothing about is dynamic? Their trenches. Name the last USC front 7 guy who you went, holy shit, that guy's a thumper.
Oh, dude, I couldn't. I'm trying to think of the last
I'm serious,
time.
In the last decade.
Yeah, it's been a long time since they've had a real difference maker. I mean,
they've lost the message.
Yeah.
Somewhere in their USC-ness of things.
I mean, USC's
get some guys in the freaking trenches.
USC's best offensive lineman is playing left guard at Oregon. I mean,
and he might be a first-round pick, probably a second-round pick, but
yeah. And you can make the argument him and Poncho have been the two, best
linemen. Said, Oregon drank your milkshake.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. And I agree. Styles make fights. And I don't know how Oregon doesn't just run. I mean, Iowa ran the ball for 5.5 yards to carry against them. But I will say this. This is where I'll defend USC to some extent. The last 3 weeks now, I get Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa are not a murderer's row.
King of the pretenders, I called it.
King of the pretenders. They have given up 6 points in the second half in the last 3 weeks. 6. Shut out Iowa in the second half, and Northwestern and Nebraska both put up 3 points in the second half.
You've watched those offenses this year, right?
Yeah, it's not great.
You got I would also like to put 5 for what a normal offense is.
Okay, well, to be fair, Oregon needed a last second, not say miracle, but Oregon was losing with under a minute and a half to go at Iowa that plays that same style. So,
yeah, but Oregon will tell you it was rainy. Do you know that it was rainy?
All right. Well, all I'm telling you.
I know. I got you.
Push back the last 3 weeks, right? We're going to sit here and we're going to be real critical of USC, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. Go watch the Notre Dame game. Their 2 losses, Notre Dame and Illinois, just lined up and said, stop us, and USC could not. And Notre Dame, by the way, looks really good right now. And Illinois is like whatever, but still, like their 2 losses, they got bitch slapped. But they did bow their back against Michigan and were really good against a Michigan team that was going to try to be physical with them. Nebraska, Northwestern, and Iowa. By the way, both those teams, all those teams ran the ball real well against USC. It's not like USC put up great numbers against the run. And like I said, Iowa ran the ball for 5.5 yards to carry. But at the end of the day, that's 3 wins, and they've given up a grand total of 6 points. So in the second half of these games, USC has found a way to bow their back. And USC, with that offense, is always in a game because they can score and they can sling it around. Now, the question becomes, can they score against Oregon? We talk about Oregon's defense has looked good all year with the exception of maybe Indiana. Is this USC team more like Indiana? We'll see. So, yes, well, I think that USC's season probably ends this Saturday at Autzen Stadium with Oregon running for 302 yards of rushing. And I'm going to say it goes for about 6 yards a clip. And I think this probably ends somewhere in the tune of 28-20, 28-17. And they just bloody them. And we come back here and we talk about USC being a fraud and a pretender again. I think that is probably how this goes. But I give USC a little more credit for playing good defense in the second half, for staying in games, and for finding ways to make plays. So I'm not ready to completely write them off, but I totally see where you're coming. And it is kind of alarming that at a place like USC, and now in year 4, you haven't done a better job of finding bodies, especially when the main rival that you have up north now, that's all they're doing. And it is interesting that that has been something that has not been addressed. When USC goes into the season and they're counting on one of their big players basically suing the NCAA for an extra year of eligibility, when that was your game plan, I do think that that's a bit embarrassing, as opposed to Oregon having.
You're trying to establish that you're back.
Yeah.
And your best offensive lineman leaves and goes and plays for Oregon.
It's not good.
Something, if internally, I'm not saying in the world, but something internally is wrong.
Yeah. Well, I look at and look up at UW, right? UW had a terrible O-line last year. And so what did they do? They went out and dressed it. And they went out and got a kid from Kansas State, and Carver Willis, who, when healthy, has been their best lineman. And they went out and got a true freshman in John Mills that has been really good. The Hatchet brothers, like if UW can put together, again, not a great O-line, but a vastly improved offensive line in one off season, knowing how much of a problem that was up in Seattle with Jed Fish. How the hell has USC not been able to do that in 4 years?
Because they haven't prioritized it.
Yeah, that's what
I'm saying. And that's what I don't mean the USC program is a joke. They're not. They're not a joke. They're a legitimate football team. They're better than that Minnesota team by a lot. Yeah. They're a solid football team. They're just so poorly constructed for what they, as an athletic department, as a university, said they wanted to be. You wanted to go join the Big Ten. So why aren't you prepared for the Big Ten?
Well, this is your whole season. Cause like you said, their big marquee win is Michigan. Iowa, right? If we're going to give Oregon credit for beating Iowa, then give USC credit for beating Iowa. But, at the end of the day, this season has been marred with, decent wins and good offense and just kind of like, nah. And now you got a chance to prove it. USC goes in and they beat Oregon. That's a college football playoff team. If you lose to Oregon, then you're welcome to Lincoln Riley, and it's Steve Sarkisian at UW with slightly better records. So what we've kind of thought that UW Oregon game would be, it's now just become the USC Oregon game, where we think Oregon's a much better team and USC has a chance to prove everyone wrong and shut everyone up and show that they're for real. And I don't think either one of us believes that they're going to do it, but there is an opportunity. And to quote Herb Brooks, you have earned this opportunity. This is what USC has earned these last 3 weeks by grinding out a couple gutsy wins against Nebraska and Iowa. You've earned the right. You've earned the right to go prove that you're not a fraud. So now go do it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like I said, 300 yards. I think Oregon runs the ball for 300 yards, and I'll bet you Dante Moore does not throw it more than 16 times. This will be one of those. Dante Moore will go like 11 of 16 for like 120 yards,
130, 140 yards a touchdown.
And Oregon will run the ball 45 times for 300 yards. I just
could happen.
They are going to line up and they are going to dare USC, dare them to stop their run game. You're just going to get a steady diet of that. Jordan Davidson, he should be number 0 because he's a freaking bowling ball. The dude is he's just a rolling ball of butcher knives, and USC will not want to tackle him by the end of the game. They won't they will want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one for Oregon fan. I really do. I do think USC can put up points. I am fascinated. If we're talking just draft prospect status, Finney, Mackay, Lemon, I wish I could do a split screen and I could just have the game on one screen and then on one side and just Finney against Lemon on the other. Because if Finney slows down Lemon, no one's going to stop him. He's very, very good. Similar-ish. It's kind of a same school comp, so that's kind of crappy. But there's some Amon-Ra there, where it's just some JSN, some Jackson Smith and Jigba, where he's like, good dude, such a good route runner. He's kind of always going to be open. He's physical at the catch point. He can do a lot of different things. If he can slow him down, we're going to already start talking about, Brandon Finney's going to be a first. That's already started, but oh my God, CB1 in a couple of years is going to get really, really loud. This is a huge game. And on the flip side, if Lemon does something with Finney and he has 150 yards, if he has a similar game to Iowa, the wide receiver one talk for Lemon is going to get really, really loud, really loud. Because again, Jeremiah Smith's not in this draft. Cam Coleman's not in this draft. No. So it's Denzel Boston. It's Mackay Lemon. There's some other, Surratt's in there from Indiana. But this is a huge game from a draft standpoint for Lemon and in the future for Finney.
Yeah, absolutely. And we said at the start of the year, we just told people, dude, enjoy him while you can, because Finney will not be a guy that's here for more than 3 years.
Oh, my breakout player to watch this year was Brandon Finney. Yep. Like, the tape is so loud. Yep. His high school tape is so good. And that's where, and it kind of ties into an update that On3 put out. Emmanuel Iheanacho. We've mentioned briefly on this pod, because I don't like to, be negative about a high school kid, that like, hey, the tape doesn't, he's big. The tape doesn't really match what I'm seeing. Like, 5-star, he's fine. Panay Sewell, best high school film I think I've ever seen in a high school alignment. Yeah. Iheanacho, I was like, sloppy, like gonna need time. He's dropped out of the 5-star territory now in the update to 45th nationally, which makes more sense. Big body, probably a right tackle. Got a chance to be good, but gonna need development. That's what he is. Finney was that thing too, where it was like, 4-star guy, you kidding me? This is some of the best tape I've ever seen. And nobody really all the way caught on. He didn't come to Oregon with the Decorian Moore hype. He didn't. And his tape was as loud at corner, or close to as loud at corner, as Decorian's was at receiver. Now everybody knows, special dude. Not so special in Corvallis. No. Oh my goodness. It's one thing to have a bad season. And we talked about this at the beginning of the year. And I said, if you can weather the storm early and not let the hangover effect hit you, you've got a chance, actually, to win 7 or 8 games. If you can keep Murphy clean and you can let him sling it. Well, they didn't keep Murphy clean. They had the worst hangover in the history of the world. It's The Hangover Part 4 or whatever movie they're on. They started slow. God, you heard Jabari Johnson in a post game this year say guys started quitting week 1. Holy crap. And does it show? Because a normal team, they lost it the last 2 weeks. They've lost to Sam Houston and Tulsa.
Yep. I mean, Tulsa blew them out. I mean,
Tulsa's terrible.
It was what was it? 17-0, I think, at the half, 20-0, something like that at the half. It wasn't
17-0 at half.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't score. Oregon didn't score. Oregon State didn't score until the 4th quarter. With a quarterback that I had to do like, wait, huh?
It was 24-0 going into the 4th quarter.
Yeah, we're like, what? Huh? In front of like 7 people, like in Tulsa. Tulsa, by the way, was a 2-win team going into that. Although Sam Houston State was a 0-win team. So
they're playing so far beneath their talent level. And listen, and people get mad at me when I say this stuff, because I'm usually, because it's recruiting, and if you really watch it, you're ahead. And yeah, the transfer portal can cut corners, but you're ahead. So when they lost all those guys, and then the next recruiting class with Bray, they were fighting to have one top 1,000 player. Like, they needed an update late in the year, and they ended up with 3. And like the top guy was like 860th in the country. That's so bad. Like, they used to have multiple guys in the top 500. Like, a good chunk of their class was in the top 500, and they still would be 8th, 9th in the Pac-12 in recruiting, 6th in the Pac-12 in recruiting. Having one guy in the top 1,000, that is, you can't argue like we're finding sleepers. Like, you're beating Portland State and Montana for your players. Like, it's unforgivable. Yeah. And so it was very obvious to me their depth was going to be awful. And as the season progressed and injuries have caught on, we're seeing, Bray and what the depth of his recruiting has been. They're like a big Sky team. Like, they are. I mean, you can't lose. You can't be shut out against Tulsa. I don't even understand it. I don't even understand falling this far behind. Again, if you'd have drawn up scenarios for this season, this is beyond. If you'd have drawn up a worst case scenario, which was this with a win against Sam Houston State instead, like a field goal win against Sam Houston State, I would have been like, dude, come on, you're being a Beaver hater. There's no way it goes this bad. Yeah. I don't even know what you do. I honestly don't. Because people would say, like, well, they're going to have a whole bunch of kids hit the portal. Good. Like, this is bad.
Well, it's a full and total restart, which, again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but Scott Barnes has to go. You just have to flush it. It's the only way to do it. You have to cut off the limb before the gangrene spreads. Because it's too good of an athletic department that's done a nice job over the years, and got caught in bad circumstances, and it's just it's spreading, and you have to stop it. That's and they're not going to do it. It sounds like, and the Scott Barnes thing just drives me crazy. Like, you saw it, we talked about it last week. Like, the Dallas Mavericks fired their GM because when they were shooting free throws to win games, the crowd was chanting "Fire Nico," like fire their GM. There's just certain things LSU knew you couldn't. You just couldn't keep it. Brian Kelly couldn't stay, and the AD couldn't stay. Like,
the negativity's too loud.
Yes, and there's so much negativity, and Scott Barnes has to know that no one wants him there. Nobody. And yet you're George Costanza. Like, they can't fire you, but no one wants you there. And so you just sit in your office and hide. It's just, it's bad. It's bad. And so everything needs a total reset. And even if that's not with the AD, this next coach is the most important hire you're going to have in 30 years, because you have to find a guy that can steady this ship. You have to find a guy that can, get some juice back in this program, that can start bringing in an influx of talent. The nice part, well, say for Oregon State, is against the competition that you still have as good of resources. You're not like out-resourced by anyone at your level, right? It's not like Washington State or Fresno State has so much more to offer than you do.
You're in the upper tier of recruiting and facilities,
yes, of where you're at. And in this world of college football, you don't have to stay down for very long. We're living in a world where, with the right hire and one good recruiting portal class, and then 2 years of good high school recruiting, you can recalibrate your program and be on solid footing. So, I just feel bad for Oregon State fan. I'm with you. I did not think it could get this bad. And at this point, wake me when they make a decision, because that's the only thing that is going to be positive right now, because there is no, this season is an abject disaster. It is the Hindenburg. It's crashed into the side of the GD Mountain. So I don't know what to say anymore about Oregon State, other than go hire the right guy and hope to God that he can pull you out of this.
Two things. Scott Barnes lists this is on Oregon, OSUBeavers.com, their athletic team site. Yeah. His email, and I'm not going to say the lady's name, his email address is a person's name.
Yeah.
That it's not Scott Barnes at Oregon State. Yeah. It's probably, I don't know. I'm not trying to disparage. I don't know if it's an intern or an assistant or whatever, but it's like, I'm making up the name, Sarah Johnson at Oregon State. Don't put your email in.
Yeah.
Don't have your email be someone else's name, where it's like, it's an F you to the fans. Yeah. And it's hiding. And just like you said, he's at the point of hiding. Yeah. The other thing, and I think this is more of a question, honestly, if you're a coach and you're a serious coach, right? If you're not just wanting the opportunity and you'll take a job because you want the opportunity, if you're not Ed Orgeron or a young coach who, is kind of like a Jerry Neuheisel, this would be such a huge climb to be a head coach already, that you take the risk. If you're a serious candidate, if you're Paul Christ, maybe, are you concerned that your boss who hires you is somebody that the whole fan base wants to get rid of? Or do you feel like, regardless of what the AD is, if I win, I'm okay? Like, are you worried about how solid your job is? Do you think that matters at all?
Well, yeah, I think for someone like Paul Christ, I don't think it does, because he doesn't have other options, right? Okay. Like, so Paul Christ right now is Oregon State or nothing, right? Like, his name is not being put out there for any other job. Where I think that might be a bit more concerning is if you're someone, let's say, Montana or Montana State or someplace like that, and you're thinking about making the jump up. Those guys will get one crack at this, right? Like, when you make that jump and it doesn't work out, you're dead in the water. Like, you're not getting another one of those. So I think those guys are a little, and you may be talking about someone that's in a good situation. That's, hey man, I just keep winning here, and I play for national championships, and I can be a little more calculating and when I make this jump. I think that would be the one that would scare me a little bit more. Does someone look at Oregon State and be like, I don't know. Like, is this really a situation I want to jump into? So I think that would be more of a concern with maybe one of the lower level coaches versus, someone like Paul Christ. And if he ends up getting the job, I don't know if that will play a factor in it, but is there, is that going to play a deciding role that guys like that need jobs or really want jobs are easier to get as opposed to someone that can maybe be a little more picky and kind of pick and choose.
Washington with a big win, a bounce back win. They're banged up, and they needed an easy win. No Jonah Coleman, no Denzel Boston.
Yeah.
Good to see him get back on track. I don't understand this team. I don't understand anything with this. It feels again, Jed Fish. Do you like him? Do you not like him? That loss makes it feel even more like they're fractured. This offense has been all over the map. They're so dynamic at times.
Yeah.
And then they look so lost in the first half of games at other times. I don't know what it feels like. A team who is still kind of meandering through, we're good enough. It's like that. I don't even know if it's an SNL skit or, it's that guy that looks in the mirror and he's like, I'm good enough.
Yeah,
I'm
smart enough. Yeah, Stuart Smiley.
There we go.
Yeah.
It feels like a team that's still right there. Like they don't totally believe they're good enough and good enough and gosh darn it, they're going to do well. Like they feel like they just maybe don't believe in something with this team because I think if this team had a little more consistency, you'd feel about them very differently. But then again, it feels like they don't know about Jed Fish. It's just a weird season. And I guess that's not a great setup for a Washington topic, except to say that I don't really know what this team is. Like, okay, you beat Purdue, kind of the way I thought you might beat Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's kind of what we were hoping. On? Yeah. I'm with you. They are, and I was higher on Washington. That's probably the number one thing. People love to call me a husky honk, and they've been killing me all year. And yet, here we are with a chance for them to be an 8-win team going into that.
They had a total reset 2 years ago, and they're going to win 8 games likely this year, and they have really good pieces. Arguably wide receiver 1, a second-round running back, and a dark horse Heisman guy for next year.
I just look at Washington, and it's been a strange path. They're about where I thought they'd be. Again, probably going to be 8-3 going into the Oregon game. I thought possibly they'd be 9-2. So you're talking about a one game difference there. It's just the way that it's gone about. If I would have told myself that at the beginning of the year, the unit that's been more consistent is the defense, I would have laughed. But I mean, again, if we're going to take their losses, 24 points at Ohio State, and the defense kept them in that game, 24-7 against Michigan, despite all the horrible turnovers from your quarterback, you kept you into that game. Wisconsin, you gave up 13 points. Like the defense was supposed to be the Achilles heel of this, and the defense has held up their end of the bargain. It's not a great defense by any stretch of the imagination, but despite some of their own injuries that they've battled through, it's a good defense I really like their secondary. I really like their back half, and even the front with some of the guys have come around. Zach Durfee's gotten healthy and has been an impact player for them. So like there's things to like about this Washington team. I just don't understand why, and maybe injuries have something to do with it. I know the O-line has been beat up quite a bit, and maybe it's just as simple as that. But when I watched Amon Williams, I guess O-line aside, he just hasn't developed the way I thought he was going to develop. And that doesn't mean that he won't. It doesn't mean that he's not capable of big moments. It's not mean that he's not capable of next year of being one of the best players in college football. I really thought that he would be better than this. And I hate to put it all on one guy who's a sophomore. I'm not, trying to sit there and blame him, but to me, he, some people compare him going into this year into Kyler Murray, right? And look, you're a young guy that's small in stature and you run around, right? I think more so the Kyler Murray thing is a fair comparison because all the stuff that makes him really good also can make him really bad.
Yep.
And the playing off script and the kind of the instinctual run around, taking bad sacks, inaccurate at times, relying on your athletic ability, like all that stuff.
When there's too much Cam Ward on a bad day.
Yes. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's awful. I mean, he can be an absolute killer. That Michigan game was one of the worst games you'll see a talented quarterback play. And, Wisconsin, and you want to, talk about the weather and obviously those are tough conditions for anyone to play in. he just hasn't been good enough in their biggest moments, and their losses. He just has not been good enough, and he's got playmakers around him, and the defense has been good enough. And so, to me, if they're going to get ultimately to where they need to go, and it's not going to happen this year, but next year, it boils down to, again, program depth, keep building it. You got to replace some guys, and Coleman, Boston, both those guys are going to be gone. But I mean, this team will rise and fall with how good Damon Williams can be. And does he settle into the next great quarterback, or does he become, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone, but how many quarterbacks have we seen have all the hype in the world and never go anywhere? I would just talk about this year alone coming in. Drew Aller, who played a lot of ball and was terrible and then got hurt. Carson Beck hasn't been what we thought. Nussmeier down at LSU hasn't been what we thought. I mean, I hate to say it because they just had a big win. John Mateer has not been good. He just isn't. John Mateer is not the reason why they're winning games. He just isn't. I mean, they are, dude. Oklahoma is crimson, and what are they? Crimson and cream. They're crimson and cream Iowa. They're Iowa football. They just have a better brand.
Supercharged.
Yeah, that's all they are. They're a supercharged Iowa. Mateer is not good. He threw for 100 and something yards against Alabama. Not like 103 yards, but they won the game, not because of him. Arch has been dog crap. Sorry, but I don't mean it. He hasn't been good. I mean, we can go down the list. Cade Klubnik,
DJ Lagway.
So that might be the best comp, right? If we're looking about a guy who we had a small sample of, but like, dude, there is some really athletic, things to work with here, and it hadn't worked. Damon Williams has been better than DJ Lagway, but I mean, that's kind of my point. Is we hear even Dante Moore to an extent. Like Dante Moore came out of the gates like guns a-blazing, and we're like, oh my God. And now it's more like, hey, you should probably come back, have another year. And we both think Dante Moore is still going to be a top 5 pick. It'll just be next year, not this year. So Damon Williams, it's just going to be whatever happens these next 2 weeks. What happens in UCLA, what happens against Oregon, whatever. Like those aren't program defining wins, and I don't think they're going to beat Oregon. But even if they did, it'd be a huge feather in your cap. But you're not going to the playoff, anything like that. So you finish out this season and you move on to next year, and can you ultimately get where you want to go? This is a monster offseason for Damon Williams. It's just it's
a monster offseason for Washington.
But Fish is a smart guy, and he'll bring in some players, assuming he's going to be there, and they'll hit the transfer portal. And I'm assuming that program will keep growing. It'll keep being built. But the biggest thing between Washington being what we're talking about this year and maybe next year talking about them in a different light will be, what does Damon Williams do? Does Damon Williams become another one of those guys that we were like, hey, remember when people were talking about that guy as like a sleeper, Heisman Trophy, like, All-American Big Ten Player of the Year type thing? Or are we going to be like, dude, this guy is having the moment? I mean, this is, this guy is having a moment when we start talking about him as a Heisman Trophy type guy in those conversations. That'll be what makes the difference between Washington this year and Washington next year is his development. He just hasn't been good enough. And I didn't think that would have been the case. I would not have thought at the beginning of the year that we'd be having that conversation and saying Damon Williams hasn't been good enough, but he hasn't.
I think it's interesting to me that on the West Coast, you have one program who is an absolute pillar of physicality, trench play, and winning right now, and that's Oregon. And they haven't won at the highest level, but in terms of program building, they're unimpeachable. Their transfers pan out, they recruit well, the whole thing. And then you have two programs trying to get there, and both of them went into this offseason needing an offensive line and a much improved defense, and that was Washington and USC. One team has a multi-million-dollar coach, the next hotshot coach, potentially the next NFL. At least that was the hype, right? When they hired him, the next potential NFL mastermind, the next Sean McVay. And they've had multiple years to do it, and they can't do it. And Jed Fish has done it in just a couple years at Washington. Their O-line is much better. Their O-line is much improved. Their defense has kept them in games. Why is it, given just resources, the location, why is it that Washington is able to play catch up and have a defense that can compete and fly around. And they're not perfect. I mean, they're not even elite, but they're good enough that
they're competent.
They're an above average defense.
Mm-hmm.
And their offensive line has shown, after being last in the Big Ten in sacks allowed, their offensive line, when healthy, is better than average. And then you look at USC, who's had the same issues for multiple years, and private school, LA, seemingly the budget to go solve some problems, and they keep having the same issues. What is that? And how has, in the last 15 to 20 years, how has the West Coast power dynamic shifted so much that the school that has the trench play and the physicality and plays like a Big Ten SEC team is Oregon? The school that can quickly rebuild given the resources they have and the reputation they have is Washington. And the school that multiple years in a row, knowing the same problems they have, can't seem to find the answers is US. How did that happen? It's so interesting. And you could honestly write a book about the way things have evolved on the West Coast in the last 15 to 20 years. I think that is perhaps the most interesting thing that happened this offseason. Oregon was going to have a young defense, but they recruit so well. They're such a factory. It's next man up. That used to be the USC model. They needed an offensive line. They went and got one. They went and paid and hit the portal and landed an offensive line. They went and got one. Well, USC and Washington needed the same things. Oregon has the resources to go do it. Washington kind of creates a hybrid version, some recruits, some transfers, but we'll figure it out. And USC's like, I don't know. There was a quiz today. It's weird. And I think it's really interesting because things have changed so much.
Yeah. I wanted to look it up and like in from a defensive perspective. So rushing defense, Washington is 5th in the Big Ten. They're 11th against the pass, and they're 7th in total defense. Yep. Now, again, this is what we're saying. They're not Ohio State. They're not Oregon. They're not Iowa. They're 7th.
Yep.
You know, and then I look at USC, and USC is down there in the teens.
Yep.
Now I'm gonna look at it, and it is funny that you would think that with the resources that are being allocated there, it shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't to put together. And this is why I say, like, if you're a fan of a program and you're kind of, you know, not in the best spot in the world of college football, it doesn't take that long to get things on the right track. If you're competent and you're smart with your money, even if you don't have the world's biggest budget, you don't have. Now, look, we all know it pays to be Ohio State and it pays to be Alabama. It pays to be Oregon to have, you know, millions of dollars to throw at something. But most of these schools that we're talking about have robust budgets. And it really comes down to, do you have smart people in place? Do you hire the right coaches? And do you have a good GM that builds your roster and puts the resources where they need to be? Because
Vanderbilt and Indiana.
Yes, if done right in this day and age, you can fix these problems. And when you watched Indiana last, that's a great example, right? I'm glad you brought that up. Watch Indiana last year, and this is why I wasn't necessarily completely sold on them this year, right? Indiana, very well coached, brought in a bunch of guys from James Madison along with Cignetti, and they took the world by storm. And where they lost their 2 games last year, and they only lost 2 games, was Ohio State and Notre Dame. And what happened? They just got bullied. Notre Dame and Ohio State both were like, yeah, that's cute. You guys are really hard to scheme against, and you run complex defensive schemes where you're bringing simulated pressures and you're rotating your safeties. All right, well, here's our 2 tight ends and stop us. Oh, you can't. And we're just going to overwhelm you with our bodies. And what did Indiana do in the offseason? Dude, they went out and addressed those things. And this year, when you watch Indiana play, they don't get bullied. And you watch them, and they're not great. It's not an elite O-line. It's not an elite D-line, but they went out and got difference makers, and they got better. And both of those are serviceable. In fact, their defensive line actually, and linebackers actually have a couple of NFL guys. And so when you watch them play, they addressed their one big need, and then they still played the same dynamic style of offense. They went out and found a better quarterback who was an upgrade over O'Rourke now with Mendoza. And lo and behold, here's Indiana undefeated with still a lot of those same dynamics, but the weakness that we thought could be exposed last year was addressed. What a novel concept. Hey, we weren't very good at something last year. Maybe we go get better at it. And they did. And so, you know, in college football, if you have the same thing year after year after year and you can't figure it out, I put that on you. That's you either you're too dumb to know what the problem is, or you're incompetent in your ability to go out and fix it, because it's not that hard in the world of college football. There's enough good players out there, especially the places that should be attractive places for players to go. it's this, there's just no excuse for year after year having the same bugaboo. And that's what would drive me crazy. If my team, had the same issue over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And seemingly the resources to fix it.
Yeah, to fix it.
You said something during your take there that really hit home for me. You said, overwhelm you with my body. And I realized no one's ever said that about me, ever. And honestly, unless I get like gigantic later in life, no one's ever going to say that about me. I'm 39.
It's not happening.
The chances of me ever like, whoa, like me being on the beach and being like, dude, I'm overwhelmed with your body.
Overwhelmed.
No woman has said that to me. Like, I'm overwhelmed. And you know what? What's sad is if this was a, like a bell curve in terms of overwhelmed with your body, me, the 5'8" guy, would be on one end. You are on the total opposite. You have spent most of your life overwhelming people with your body, whether it's football or now jujitsu. And you know what? I would just for a day like to overwhelm someone with my body the way that you overwhelm people with your body.
I will tell you that
it's never going to happen for me. I have to really put in the work to get there.
I have overwhelmed, but I will also tell you that I've been overwhelmed, and it is a humbling experience.
Warren Sapp overwhelmed you with his body.
Yeah, he's not even the worst one. The
Bryant
49ers.
Young
Bryant Young. Body. Warren Sapp just beat me. Like, he just beat me. Bryant Young overwhelmed me. I wouldn't say Warren Sapp overwhelmed with his body. He just was good.
Yeah.
There was nothing about Warren. That guy was so good for such little effort. He just
was does he have just elite hands?
Yeah. He was so athletic, and he didn't look like much, and he wasn't very strong when he was in the weight room.
Balance in hands.
Balance in hands.
If that's what you were going to prescribe.
Balance, hands, quickness.
Yeah.
He had a weird shape to him, so you couldn't really. It's hard to get your hands on him. And he was farm boy strong. He wasn't. He was not like if you watched him lift weights, I was way stronger than he was. But he could, if you went to throw a punch, he could grab your wrist, and he had like these like meat claws, and he could swat away your hand or grab your wrist and move it before you knew it. He just was a unique sort of guy. Now, Bryant Young, he would overwhelm you with his body. That was Trevor Price, Chester McLaughlin.
Jesus.
These are just guys that were just John Henderson was another one.
How tall was John Henderson?
He's like 6'8", and he just made me look like a little person.
Yeah.
There were just people like that I realized there's just nothing I can do. Just nothing. I remember like coming off the field at the Bryant Young one and my coach being like, "What the hell was that?" And me being like, "Oh, like, what am I supposed to? His body. Like, what am I supposed to do with that?" And he just like to discuss. I was like, "I don't know. Like, there's just nothing you could do. There's just guys that are hunting. Aaron Donald. I talked to guys, and I never saw Aaron Donald, but I'm friends with some guys that played against Aaron Donald. And I won't say their name, but I was talking. I was drinking some beers and with a guy that played in the same division with Aaron Donald, and he played a long time. He was a really good old lineman. And I asked him, and I just don't say his name because I don't know how much people.
How much out
there. But so I just asked him. I was like, who's the best player you ever played against? Because he played for a long time. I had like a cup of coffee and played in preseason games. This dude was like a real player. And I said, well, who's the best player? He said, Aaron Donald. Didn't even get to finish the question. No, I said, yeah, Aaron Donald. And I was like, is it close? He goes, no. and he just like, it was like the end of the conversation. And he threw out like, and he goes like, I played against guys that were really good. Fletcher Cox was one that he brought up. Chris Jones was another one. He said, those guys were really good players. And he goes, they're not Aaron Donald. They just not. And there's just dudes out there that they will just overwhelm you. And when it happens to you, especially if you're a bigger guy, and most of my life I had not been overwhelmed, and you do now get overwhelmed. It's I'm not sure which is worse, never having overwhelmed or being the overwhelmer that then gets overwhelmed?
No. It's better to be in the middle of the pecking order or the upper end than being like, what's it like to overwhelm someone with your body? Yeah, it's not good.
Because once in a while it does happen to me now, whether it's on a mat or like in the cage or a boxing ring or whatever, I'll get in there. And for the most part, I do pretty good for myself, but there's levels to it. And I'll go in there and there'll be some kid that's like, I'm 47 and there'll be some kid that's like 26 that wrestled, like Arizona State. And he's like 255 and is like, I won't be a professional fighter. And I'm like, you can go over there. I want nothing to do. I want nothing to do with it. So I was like, Suke, would you go in there and give that guy a look? I'm like, why don't you kiss my ass? I'm like, I don't need anything. I don't need anything to do with that. And there's just some smoke out there. So yes, I have been overwhelmed plenty of times. So believe me, I understand the feeling of being overwhelmed.
That's my goal this year.
Overwhelm somebody?
Before I'm 41. I'm 39 now. I turned 40 in a few months. So I don't have time to overwhelm anybody with my body by April. I want by 41 someone to be like, dude, I'm overwhelmed with your body.
Give me like 6 to 8 months. If we trained like 3 days a week, we could overwhelm somebody. You could overwhelm somebody. We'll get
I broke up a cross country practice fight one time.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, that's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Well, those kids
I overwhelmed them.
Well, the problem is your victim weight too. Under 200 pounds, we call that victim weight.
Yeah.
So we got bulk you up. We got to bulk you up to non-victim weight.
It's problems. All right. That's probably enough about my body for this episode.
We love your body.
Thank you, buddy. College football playoff, the rankings, the teams that have a shot. You know what? Honestly, it was another week of this is what I thought. Like Alabama is good enough on a good day to beat anybody. And they're good enough they're bad enough. They're right in that area where when they don't play well, they're going to lose. And I thought Texas A&M to me is not, people talked about when the first college football rankings came out. It's like Texas A&M deserves to be number one. What's the deal with it? And I'm like, is anybody watch? You guys didn't watch Texas A&M. They're fine. They're solid. On any given day, they can beat anybody. This is going to be a really interesting college football playoff in the sense that I think there are multiple teams who will lose over the course of the college football playoff. And they will, when they're 35, when they're doing podcasts our age, 45, whatever, they'll go, God, we just had a bad day. Mm-hmm. And if we could have just got by Oregon, if we just could have got by Ole Miss, I think we could have handled Ohio State. I think we could have done it. I think there are probably 8 teams that are going to have those their alumni 25 years from now are going to have those conversations.
No.
Because, and it doesn't necessarily even mean I think the college football games are all going to be spectacular and close. I do think that if you played whatever the bracket spits out, I think if you played it 10 times, you would get a different Final Four 10 times. Or 9 times. I mean, I don't know what the odds are of it being different all 10. But do you know what I mean? I think this is a really close year. And by the way, I don't think Ohio State is unbeatable either. This isn't those elite LSU teams. This isn't that 2001 Miami.
No, they don't run the ball very well, and Sayan is fine. But again,
Jeremiah Smith seems banged up.
Yeah. But the best example you have of this is Alabama. So Alabama lost to Oklahoma, and if now it's like Oklahoma, are they the new, the scary Terry for Alabama? It's 2 years in a row. Alabama will still probably get into the college football playoff, still control their own destiny. But, if you didn't watch that game, you're like, oh man, Alabama crapped the bed. Dude, if those teams played 10 times, Alabama wins 9 of them. Alabama was better than Oklahoma top to bottom in that game, other than turnovers and dumb special teams plays. Yep. I mean, but that's like Oklahoma. That's why I said Oklahoma is just Iowa now in a better uniform. Like Oklahoma has to win one way and one way only. Dude, Oklahoma had 212 yards of total offense, but they had the pick. They had caused 3 turnovers, big special teams play. I mean, they won in the margins. Like that's how Iowa wins. Like you look up had Iowa beat Oregon, we would have looked up and been like, how the hell did Iowa win? That
should have never happened. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to look up and at the end of that game with Alabama and Oklahoma, I promise you, Alabama's looking up right now being like, how the hell did we lose to an Oklahoma team that had 212 yards of offense and just kicked field goal? Their best player is a field goal kicker. Welcome to the world of imperfect teams. Yeah. I'm with you there. I'm so with you. There will be a team. That was very well put. There will be at least one or two teams that say we should have won a national title this year. This was our year. This was the opportunity. And yet you won't, because it's just something weird's going to happen. Ty Simpson, like when Ty Simpson is playing his best, Alabama is arguably the best team in the country. Agreed. But they do rely on him kind of carrying them. And I thought he was okay. He wasn't great.
He is not infallible. He's not.
And had he played just a slightly better game and not had the bad pick, and had Alabama not just fumbled the ball away, Alabama wins that game probably by 2 scores, and we talk about Ty Simpson winning a Heisman Trophy, but that's not the way it went. There was 2 or 3 plays that went the other way, and all of a sudden you found yourself in the Oklahoma Rock fight, and you're like, well, there you go. And you're looking up at the scoreboard saying, how the hell did we lose that game?
So we give these teams truth serum. Go down the list. You're the teams. I give you truth serum and ask you this question. Yeah. Can you win the national title? And you're in your coaches meeting, never leaks out. Yeah. Let's go down the list. Number 1's Ohio State. Just yes or no. Yes. Okay. Indiana.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And some years I would say no. This year I say yes.
We're talking this year. Texas A&M. Internally within themselves.
Yes.
Okay. Georgia.
Yes.
Ole Miss.
I think Georgia's playing.
I worry about people should be worried about Georgia.
I don't, but I think Georgia's offense is coming around. Georgia, yes.
That's what I mean. If Georgia puts it all together, Georgia's very good. Ole Miss.
Yes.
Okay. Oregon.
Yes.
Texas Tech.
No.
Okay. Oklahoma. No, that's not it. It's not it. Oklahoma.
No.
Notre Dame.
Yes.
Alabama.
Yes.
Okay. Now BYU, Vanderbilt, Utah.
No chance.
Miami.
No.
No? Okay. I think the list might include, I think Mario Cristobal, if you gave him truth serum and said, can you win the national title if you play real well, Ruben Bain takes over, you run the ball well. I think Mario Cristobal, if you gave him truth serum, would say, I think we could. Yeah. We could beat anybody. Yeah. So there are like 8 teams there. I don't know exactly how many. We're iffy on Miami. Alabama, yes. Notre Dame, yes. There are 9 teams that we said yes to.
Yes.
I don't know the last time in the double-digit weeks.
Totally with you.
That we've been able to say that there are that many teams that think
absolutely. And by the way, every one of those teams, I think, has a giant flaw, and I don't think they're great teams. But could they win it? Because it's less about do I think that they can be great, but it is more so as though I think everyone else can be average. Like,
right.
I can look at an A&N team and be like, dude, they just gave Mike Elko that big long extension, which again, this is what you have to do. And I get it, whatever. Texas A&M, you have more money than you know what to do with, but they should have lost to Notre Dame, could have lost to Auburn, right? Should have lost to South Carolina, and arguably could have lost to Arkansas. If one play goes wrong in any one of those games, let alone, we could honestly, realistically, in just an easy alternate world, be sitting there staring at a 3-loss team, and we ain't giving Mike Elko the lifetime contract in the extension. But that's the way this works. Is A&M has found a way to be resilient, but A&M to me is more likely to lose in the first round of the playoffs as they are to win a national championship, and yet both of those things are absolutely in the realm of conversation. And I think that's just the sort of year that we are having.
Arkansas is 2-8 and was ahead. It was legitimately ahead in the fourth quarter.
Yes. So I just think it is a really weird world where we can say that Texas A&M can win a national championship, and depending on who the matchup is in the first round, I will probably pick Texas A&M to lose because depending, I'm assuming they're going to be a top seed, and so let's say that if you gave me Notre Dame, if you gave me Alabama. I'm just thinking of teams that depending on where the bracket would maybe play Texas A&M. We assume A&M gets a bye, right?
And so let's shoot. It could be A&M, Alabama.
Yes, and if Texas A&M played Alabama or they played Notre Dame, I might even say this, even to an extent, even if you gave me Oregon playing Texas A&M in the second week of the playoffs, so it would be Texas Tech with the long layoff and those teams coming off a win. I'll tell you right now, I think I'd be inclined to take Oregon, Notre Dame, or Alabama to beat Texas A&M.
Right. And that's kind of what I mean. I'm excited about this playoff. I think this playoff is going to be what it's all about. I mean, here's the thing, like strip away, and I think I've said this before, strip away people's problems with the transfer portal and players getting paid. And we can argue that endlessly. One, they're putting their bodies on the line. They should get paid. You can say the market's out of whack, whatever. They should get some compensation. What has transpired in conference realignment, which people are mad about? What has transpired in the last 3 years in terms of competitive balance is the best evolution for college football in history. It is. Indiana and Vanderbilt didn't have a chance to be relevant at any point in their histories. I think Vanderbilt was favored in an SEC game for the first time in like 7 years this year. They're a top 15 team. Indiana had no path to being relevant. If they had a giant gap in we're not physical, there was no way to go fix that. Good luck with a recruiting class that's 10th in the Big Ten at multiple teams, but you're not going to get more physical. Whereas if you put something on paper and say all these guys are coming back and we won 9 games, people will come to you. If you build it, they will come. Like it's happening, man. Like that is a wonderful thing. Look at the 5-star talent. It used to go to like 4 or 5 programs, and that's why Alabama was so loaded. There was no way out. They got 7 every year, so they had 22 5-stars. There was a year in the Pac-12 when I was covering recruiting in the last decade where the entire Pac-12 had 2 5-star recruits, the entire conference. Yep. People think every team like Oregon has like 19 5-stars. No, they don't. There was a year where the entire Pac-12 had 2, and Alabama had like 17. That's not the case anymore. Go look at recruiting rankings. Like literally 15 teams have a shot at a 5-star kid. Houston got a 5-star quarterback. The Houston Cougars got a 5-star quarterback. That's wonderful for college football. So yes, there are a lot of problems in college football, but there's a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. I agree. There's a chance for anybody to make the right hire, invest, and go win.
And we're getting
a foundation. You can win at a really high level. Really
better games. We're going to get better and more elite games that actually are kind of toss-ups where we're not going into it being like, oh, this team is a 10-point favorite. And I'm here for it. You may not like it, and some people may have got left behind, but college football is better than ever. And
ask Indiana, ask Vanderbilt, ask Oregon. Shoot. Ask Ohio State. Alabama's not real happy because everyone's able to do what they were doing under the table the entire time.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. Oregon State, we wish you some progress somewhere. We don't know on a coaching search, but we wish for you progress. Oregon, we wish for good health in your pass catchers. USC, we wish for some awareness. Washington, we wish for some consistency. How's that?
I like it. I think that's a solid way to end this.
Perfect. Have a good one, man. Go overwhelm people with your body and jits.
See what I can do.
I'll do some push-ups and start the journey.
There you go. Get some protein in you.
There we go.
Yeah, brother.